The screaming outside my door had been going on for almost an hour when I cut into my second ribeye. The steak was medium rare, thick as my fist, with melted garlic butter sliding down the seared crust. Beside it sat a mountain of truffle mashed potatoes, buttered asparagus, lobster tails, king crab legs, and a bowl of creamy mushroom soup that was still steaming. I took a sip of ice-cold cola and leaned back in my leather chair. Beyond the reinforced wall of my apartment, the temperature had fallen to 70 degrees below zero. The city was dying. Cars had frozen solid in the streets. Water pipes had burst inside thousands of buildings. Tower stations had failed one after another until the skyline became a black graveyard buried beneath white snow. People who had laughed at weather warnings were now burning furniture for heat. People who had mocked anyone storing food were killing each other over instant noodles. And my ex-girlfriend, Vanessa Reed, was pounding on my front door with both fists. "Ethan, open the door, please, I speared a piece of lobster." Her voice cracked through the intercom. "I know you're in there. I'm freezing." I chewed slowly. My apartment was warm enough for me to wear a t-shirt. Behind me, through a doorway that did not exist in normal space, stretched my private infinite warehouse. Rows of shelves vanished beyond the horizon. Beef, pork, chicken, rice, flour, vegetables, fruit, medicine, fuel, weapons, clothing, generators, water. Everything humanity suddenly considered more precious than gold. Vanessa hit the door again. "Ethan, please, we used to love each other." I looked at the security monitor. Her lips were blue. Her eyelashes were covered in frost. Behind her stood the man she had cheated on me with, Derek Walsh, the same man who had laughed while I died in my first life. I turned down the intercom volume, then I cut myself another piece of steak. I did not get up. In my previous life, I had been stupid enough to believe love mattered after the world ended. 3 days after the freeze began, Vanessa had called me crying. She said she was trapped. She said she was scared. She said she had nowhere else to go. I let her in. Derek came with her. She told me he was only a friend. I believed her because I wanted to believe her. That mistake killed me. At first they behaved like grateful guests. Vanessa hugged me every morning. Derek called me brother. They praised the supplies I had collected before the storm. They said we would survive together. Then the food started disappearing faster than it should have. Vanessa ate canned peaches like they were free. Derek poured half a bottle of whiskey into his coffee. They left doors open. They wasted heating fuel. When I complained, Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Stop acting like some dictator. We all live here now." That word mattered. We. My apartment had become theirs. My food had become theirs. My fuel had become theirs. My life had become something they could vote on. 2 weeks later, our neighbors discovered I still had supplies. They came to the door begging. A father offered me his wedding ring for a bag of rice. An old woman offered every piece of jewelry she owned for antibiotics. I wanted to help. Vanessa wanted attention. She secretly told everyone how much food I had. By sunset, 20 people were outside. By midnight, there were 50. Then Derek suggested we should create a community. I still remembered the smile on his face. A community. What he meant was that I would provide everything and he would become their leader. When I refused, Vanessa slapped me. I stared at her. She had never hit me before. Her face changed the moment she realized I was shocked. The sweet mask disappeared. "You selfish bastard," she said. "People are dying and you're hiding food. My food, our food." No, that one word sealed my fate. The next morning, Derek pinned my arms behind my back. 2 neighbors opened the door. Vanessa took my winter coat, my boots, my gloves, everything. I struggled until my shoulder almost tore from its socket. Vanessa, she would not look me in the eye. Derek smiled. "You should have learned how to share." Then they pushed me outside. The cold hit like a hammer. I remember screaming. I remember beating on the steel door until my fingers stopped bending. Through the little window, I saw Vanessa standing beside Derek. She was wearing my coat. He wrapped an arm around her waist. She leaned against him. I begged. She watched. Then she pressed the intercom button. "You should have been more useful, Ethan." Derek laughed. The lights inside turned off. I lasted less than 10 minutes. My final thought was not about death. It was regret. If I had one more chance, I would never open that door. Then everything went black. When I woke again, sunlight was pouring across my bedroom, my phone was ringing. I stared at the ceiling. No frost, no darkness, no emergency sirens. I sat up so quickly I nearly fell off the bed. My hands were healthy. My fingers were not black. I touched my face, warm skin. I grabbed my phone. The date told me everything. I had returned to 30 days before the global freeze. Then a cold voice sounded inside my head. Infinite space system activated. I froze. A transparent doorway appeared in front of me. Beyond it was darkness stretching without limit. The system explained its rules in seconds. Anything I placed inside would be perfectly preserved. Food would never rot. Ice would never melt. Hot meals would remain hot forever. Living creatures could enter if I permitted them. The space had no measurable end. I stood there in silence. Then I started laughing. Not because it was funny. Because God had handed a dead man a loaded gun. I opened my banking app. I had $68,000 in savings, not enough. So I sold everything. My motorcycle, my watch, my gaming computer, the investment account my father had left me. Then I mortgaged the apartment. I took every loan the bank would approve. I borrowed against my car. I opened lines of credit. By the end of the week, I had access to nearly $900,000. People would have called it financial suicide. They were right. Money would soon become paper, food would become power. One rented warehouses outside the city under 3 shell companies. Then I started buying 50 tons of rice, 30 tons of flour, 20 tons of pasta, 15 tons of sugar, 10 tons of salt, cooking oil by the pallet, canned tuna, canned beef, canned beans, peanut butter, chocolate, coffee, tea, powdered milk, instant noodles by the truckload, then meat, whole cattle, pork shoulders, chicken breasts, lamb racks, wagyu steaks, salmon, tuna, shrimp, lobster, king crab. I cleared out 3 restaurant supply companies. Their sales managers thought I was opening a chain of luxury hotels. I smiled and let them think it. I bought frozen pizzas, dumplings, French fries, ice cream, cakes, cheesecake, pastries, croissants, bacon, sausages, eggs, butter, and every cheese I could get my hands on. Then came medicine, antibiotics, painkillers, bandages, disinfectant, insulin, surgical kits, vitamins, cold medicine. I bought thermal clothing designed for polar expeditions. Thousands of blankets, hundreds of sleeping bags, portable heaters, propane cylinders, diesel generators, solar panels, battery banks, chainsaws, axes, crowbars, rope, tools, water filters, water tanks, portable stoves, coal, gasoline, diesel. Then I spent another fortune reinforcing my apartment. The windows were replaced with multi-layer ballistic glass. The walls were insulated. The door became a custom steel security barrier anchored directly into concrete. I installed independent ventilation, backup heating, security cameras, motion sensors, a reinforced inner gate. The contractor left when I told him I wanted something that could survive a riot. Expecting a war, something like that. Vanessa noticed the spending. She came over one night while workers were carrying boxes through the hallway. "What are you doing? Preparing for what?" "Winter," she laughed. Derek was waiting for her downstairs. I could see his red sports car through the window. She did not know I knew. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. "Ethan, you've been acting weird." I remembered those words. In my first life, I would have apologized. This time I smiled. "Then you probably shouldn't stay with me." Her face changed. "What? We're done." She stared as if I had spoken another language. She expected me to chase her. Instead, I closed the door. The freeze arrived exactly, and I remembered. At first, people called it a free cold front. Then temperatures kept falling. Rain became sleet. Sleet became ice. The government told everyone to remain indoors. Within 12 hours, highways stopped moving. Within 24 hours, power usage broke every record. Then parts of the grid failed. The following night, the temperature dropped below 50 degrees below zero. After that, society began to crack. I watched it happen from a heated room while eating beef hot pot. Thin slices of marbled meat disappeared into bubbling broth. Fresh mushrooms floated beside tofu and cabbage. A tray of prawns sat on crushed ice. I had cold beer. Fresh watermelon, even strawberries. Outside, people were fighting over firewood. On the fourth day, Vanessa called me. I ignored her. On the fifth day, she sent 30 messages. She told me her apartment had lost power. She said Derek's house was worse. She asked whether I still had food. I did not answer. On the sixth day, she arrived. Derek stood behind her with a scarf wrapped around his face. The same scene from my first life. Only this time, the door stayed closed. Ethan. Vanessa slapped the intercom camera. I know you can hear me. I sat at my dining table with a plate of roast duck. You have heat, she shouted. I can see steam on your window. Derek stepped forward. Come on. Man. This is serious. Open up. Man. Brother. Friend. He used the same tone. I pressed the intercom button. No. Silence. Vanessa stared at the camera. What? No. Ethan. Don't be childish. I almost laughed. Derek tried another approach. We've got people downstairs. Mrs. Carter has a kid. You can't just let everybody freeze. There it was. The same trick. Turn my property into a moral obligation. Turn my survival into their entitlement. I looked at another camera. 8 people were waiting near the stairwell, then 12, then 16. Vanessa had already told them. Again. Some people never changed. I took another bite. She started crying. At least she made her voice sound like she was crying. We were together for 3 years. You were sleeping with Derek for 6 months. Her face went blank. Derek stopped moving. I continued. The Harbor Hotel, room for 112. Every Thursday night, sometimes Sunday, Vanessa's mouth opened. I remembered everything from my first life. This time, knowledge was ammunition. She recovered quickly. That doesn't matter right now. It matters to me. Ethan, please, no. Her expression twisted. The tears disappeared. You selfish piece of trash. There she was. The real Vanessa. You have food in there. You have heat. People are dying. I leaned toward the microphone. Then you should find someone useful. Her face lost all color. She remembered the phrase. Maybe she had said it jokingly before. Maybe cruelty always lived inside her. Either way, the words struck exactly where I wanted them to. I switched off the intercom. For another hour, they begged, then they threatened, then they left. 3 days later, they came back with a crowbar. This time there were more than 30 people in the hallway. A man carried a kitchen knife. Another had a baseball bat. Derek stood at the front. Vanessa stayed behind him. They had stopped pretending. Derek swung the crowbar into my door. The impact echoed through the apartment. Nothing moved. Again, nothing. He shouted, "You can't keep all that food to yourself." Another strike. The crowd became louder. I watched through the camera as desperation turned into violence. In my first life, this mob would have terrified me. Now I felt nothing. I opened a hidden panel beside the security monitor. The apartment had one final upgrade, a reinforced firing port. I slid it open. The hallway went silent. The barrel of my shotgun appeared through the slot. Derek dropped the crowbar. Nobody breathed. I'll say this once. My voice carried through the steel. This apartment is mine. The food is mine. The heat is mine. If you leave now, you live. One man in the back shouted that I was bluffing. Derek believed him. He bent down for the crowbar. I fired into the concrete beside his hand. The explosion inside the hallway was deafening. Concrete fragments sprayed across the floor. People screamed. Derek fell backward. The crowd broke instantly. Some ran, some crawled. Vanessa slipped on the frozen floor and slammed against the wall. She stared directly into the camera. Ethan. I watched her crawl toward the door. Please. Her voice had changed. No manipulation, no arrogance, just fear. The temperature outside had fallen even lower. The building's pipes had completely frozen. Several apartments were already filled with dead bodies. Vanessa pressed both palms against my door. I'll do anything. I said nothing. I was wrong, nothing. I love you. I finally turned on the intercom. No. You love the heat. She started sobbing. Behind her, Derek was limping toward the stairs without waiting for her. She saw him leaving. Derek, he never turned around. For a second, she understood everything. He had never loved her either. She had traded one fool for another. The difference was that I was no longer a fool. She looked back at my camera. Ethan, where am I supposed to go? I thought about my first death, my numb fingers, my frozen lungs, the sound of them laughing behind the door. Then I answered, not my problem. I closed the firing port. I muted the cameras, and I walked back to dinner. Inside my infinite space, a private restaurant waited beneath warm golden lights. A chef station held trays of roast beef, grilled lobster, garlic butter prawns, smoked ribs, fried chicken, sushi, oysters, pasta, dim sum, fresh bread, fruit, cakes, and ice cream. I filled a plate. Outside, the old world was freezing to death. Inside, I had enough food to last longer than civilization itself. Vanessa had chosen her side before the apocalypse. Now she could survive with it. I poured myself another drink and looked at the endless shelves stretching into darkness. Food was only the beginning. Fuel, medicine, weapons, seeds, machines. When the storm finally ended, whoever controlled those things would control what remained. In my first life, I died begging outside my own door. In this life, people would beg outside my gates. The strong made the rules now, and I intended to write every single one.